Hello and welcome to Net Extra Insights, the membership and not-for-profit sector's foremost digital marketing podcast. Hello and welcome to Net Extra Insights podcast. My name's Sean Greentree and I'm really pleased to announce the launch of our brand new Insights podcast, which is intended to complement our existing internet and digital marketing best practice articles on our website, which by the way you can find at www.netextra.net. Okay, NetExtra is a digital marketing and online communications company that specialises in the delivery of websites, mobile apps, digital marketing services, that kind of thing, specifically to the membership and not-for-profit sectors. And today I'm joined by NetExtra's one and only digital marketing manager, Adam Butler. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Sean.
I thought what we'd do to start with is I thought we'd start with a series of beginner guides, tackle things like Google Analytics, pay-per-click marketing, possibly covering the Google Grants thing as well, because I know that there's a lot of charitable people out there looking to sort of look at that sort of thing. What we also would do is talk a bit about social media as well, but today I'm really particularly interested in going through a beginner's guide to search engine optimization. I know it's a hot topic. It's one that we get asked quite a lot at events, especially by charities who want to know a bit more. So, okay, probably a good place to start, Adam, is perhaps you can just tell us in a few minutes what generally constitutes as good overall SEO practice.
Okay, so, I mean, good SEO practice probably involves quite a lot of things. I'd say the number one trait that you need to have is a good attention to detail. It's quite crucial that there's not going to be any errors in the spelling mistakes or any errors in the calculations that you've made in terms of analysing the data that you're looking at. I'd say it's important to be genuine, do things with a purpose, and that purpose being serving the visitors that come to your site, not trying to trick your way up the Google rankings. The use of social media effectively is also really key. That gives you a good kind of base to start growing your organisation.
And I take it this is a more recent thing. Social media obviously has kind of come to the fore certainly in the last 2 or 3 years. Is this something that Google sees as kind of built into their algorithms?
It helps, yeah, it definitely helps, and it definitely indicates to Google that the velocity of the links that you're receiving from social media definitely helps make it apparent to Google that that's a natural link that's being generated. As far as I'm aware, Google still doesn't have access into things like Facebook's data right deep into it, because again, that's Facebook's bread and butter, and that's Google's bread and butter.
Well, I guess to a large extent, it's all behind closed doors anyway, and behind a login anyway. Okay, yes, you've got Facebook groups and what have you, which probably less so.
Yep.
But yeah, I can hear what you're saying there. Sorry, I interject. I'm sure there's other stuff, and I'm sure there's other stuff that we will cover off as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, they're starting to get a bit better at kind of pulling things out of the social media stuff. So, I mean, over the last sort of year or so, they've started integrating that into Google Analytics, into the suite that you get, and you can start pulling out data on that from kind of legacy sites, if you would, like Dig, Reddit, that kind of stuff. Well, Reddit's not necessarily a legacy site, but it's quite public-facing, more so than something like Facebook, where you're kind of behind a login or anything like that. Everything on Reddit is quite open, so they kind of scan that and they categorize that as a social media site. And Twitter as well, it's all fairly open unless you've kind of got your account protected or anything like that. But I'd say things like Twitter, Facebook and Reddit are probably the 3 main social media channels that Google will be looking at. But as yet, like I say, I'm not sure that they've got a full picture of what's going on Facebook.
Okay. Are there any other sort of quick good overall SEO practice? Like I say, I'm sure we'll be covering off these in some of the other questions we have here.
Yeah, I'd say kind of understanding everything you can about your visitors before you actually start doing anything SEO-wise. I mean, analysing and segmenting traffic based on their behaviour is always a good place to start.
Okay.
You should have enough data in your analytics to kind of start performing these these actions. There's plenty. You just need to make sure that you're tracking the goals that you're looking to fulfill as well, or at least key progress indicators that indicate success in that area.
Okay. So it goes further than just your metadata and keywords on your pages and what have you. As I say, by the sounds of what you're saying, it goes deeper into things like analytics, and you can bring in things like that and to hone your SEO accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of SEO is, as it's kind of termed now, I mean, SEO can be quite a wide-ranging...
Practice.
Yeah, practice. No, so SEO can be quite a wide, all-encompassing term, and really, the strict definition of SEO, which was search engine optimization, it tended in the past just to refer specifically to kind of improving your organic rankings through mostly Google and other search engines. But it's just a lot more important than that now, because the industry's moved on, and people want to see results above and beyond just higher rankings, because at the end of the day that doesn't necessarily convert into revenue or any of the goals that an organisation's looking to fulfil. So it has to be targeting the right people, the right phrases, and generating...
That's a good point. Yeah, I'll take your point. Okay, moving on. Something that I'm always being asked, always, certainly from an SEO perspective, is how quickly they can implement all of this stuff. They can get their keywords right, they can get their metadata right, they can get up to date with their tags, but how quickly can they expect to see results?
Again, there's not really any concrete answer there in terms of a kind of all-encompassing answer, but I guess largely it depends on the work that was done. Something like generating a new sitemap can be quite quick in terms of getting the results. But really, it kind of depends on Google's crawl rate. So if you look at your Webmaster Tools, if you log into your Webmaster Tools suite that Google provides you with,
and that's something people can access through their Google login, I take it?
Yeah, that's free, free to use. And so basically what you'll see... And
by the way, sorry to interject, if anybody needs any help on that, please do get in contact with us. Send an email to info@netextra.net. I'm sure we can help you with that one. Sorry again.
That's all right. So what you would see when you log in there is basically the crawl information. And the way Google works is basically they send out little robots, they're called, and what they'll do is kind of scan really key pieces of information about your site and about the pages within your website. And every day they might come to your site and crawl 10, 15 pages and index those accordingly. Now, if you were going to do an SEO campaign, if you did it over the course of one day and that involved changes to 400 or 500 different pages on your site, then there's a good chance that you might be waiting for quite a while for those changes to actually be picked up by Google if you're not being crawled very often. And one of the things that kind of affects that crawl rate is, the connectivity that Google can make with your website. So, for instance, if your website's down a lot, if you haven't got great hosting...
I guess that when you say not great hosting, if you're on shared hosting with other sites that are less reputable, should I say?
Possibly that, yeah. I mean, that is not a great practice to be getting into, but I was kind of referring more just to uptime and page load speeds and that kind of stuff. So really, like the term that you see kind of bandied about a little bit nowadays is kind of your crawl budget, and that's basically saying kind of you might have 500 pages crawled over the course of a month, and for most people that's probably adequate. But when you start looking at larger sites, and there can be some real behemoths out there that that's just not going to cut it. So you have to generally kind of pace the work out so that Google's keeping up with the changes. As to when you actually see the results, that's completely down to Google. They might scan the changes, they might understand the changes that you've made, but they still won't get around to actually reflecting that in the search engine results pages for maybe a month or two afterwards. But generally, things like 301 redirects, they can go live fairly quickly, and I would say that maybe to a week to a month would be a decent amount of time to actually wait to see results. If you don't see anything after that, depending on what the changes were, I think it would be quite hard to actually ascertain that any improvement or fall in your rankings were down to the work that you did past that point. So yeah.
Okay, cool. And we talked about the measurement of SEO effectiveness just now. You talked a bit about Google Analytics. Is that the only method, or are there other methods that we should be considering as well?
For measuring success?
Yeah, for measuring success of the effectiveness. So,
basically, I mean, it's totally down to the goals of the organisation as to what they would deem to be a success.
I guess that can range from anything from traffic to the site to downloads of a particular PDF, for example, or download of audios, or whatever it might be, or tracking through to certain goals of a site.
It's always important when you first start an SEO campaign or a digital marketing campaign that you identify what it is you're trying to achieve at the very start, and then you can kind of create KPIs that indicate success in that area.
And that's key, isn't it? Creating key KPIs at the beginning.
Yeah, both if you're kind of an agency and you're working with a company, or if you're in-house, everyone needs to be clear on what it is that you will be measuring in order to assess whether anything was being successful or not. The other thing is that there needs to be a benchmark in place before anything started, so you need to know where you're actually at right now. I wouldn't say that it was best practice if you had a brand new site or anything like that, or if you had a site that wasn't tracking goals. I would at least track the goals for a month before any SEO work was done, and then that gives you kind of benchmark to work with. Otherwise, you're generally working in the dark still.
Sure. I guess for memberships and other not-for-profits and charities and things, that could be anything like, new membership renewals, new memberships, donations to a charity, new supporters, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you've got offline goals as well, they can still be measured as long as there's something online that they can do. So, for instance, if your member sign-up involves kind of printing something off, filling it out, and then sending it in via kind of snail mail, then...
And yes, that still exists in a lot of cases.
Then it's probably quite a good indicator to start tracking the downloads of that.
Yeah.
And then what you can do is kind of average out the value of someone downloading that document. So, for instance, if you had 100 people download a document and you only had 10 people fill that in and return it, you'd just sort of work out the value of those returns, divide that by 100, and that kind of gives you your average of them.
Rate,
yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Another thing that we commonly get asked: can anyone guarantee page one in Google rankings? There are a lot of agencies out there that will make big, wild promises. Can they guarantee you page one Google rankings for certain keywords and phrases?
It's difficult. I'd say not really. Mostly anyone that you come across shouldn't be guaranteeing anything because it's not in their hands. It really is in Google's hands. Although, having said that, page one results are achievable in a lot of cases. In most cases, I would assume. Position one results are a lot more difficult to promise. But then, having said that, there are some insanely talented people in the industry, and I'd be surprised if there was, if people like SEO Gadget, SEO Interactive, kind of Martin McDonald, if you gave them enough time, enough budget, they pretty much achieve anything. Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. If you had to pick 3 factors influencing the ranking of a page,
right,
what would it be? Just 3.
Just 3. I'd say the most obvious one is kind of inbound links to a page. That's still a really important factor to consider. There's still a massive correlation between the amount of links a page receives and its ranking within Google. It also depends on kind of, if we're going to class this as the same factor, then I'd say kind of internal links as well. Need to have good internal links pointing to that page. So if there's a key page on your website and it's only got one link pointing to it and it's quite deep within the tree in the sitemap, then it's going to struggle to get high rankings because Google needs to know that it kind of passes authority from one page to the next. So if there's a page that has 50 external links pointing to it that's doing really well, you would want other key pages to be linked to from that, so some of that authority could pass between those 2 pages. I'd say the second factor that influences the ranking of a page is generally what your competitors are doing and how well they're doing SEO as well. The third one is probably titles and keywords. They're still important as much as they're kind of Google's degrading the value of that and how it factors that into the rankings. You still have to indicate to Google what the topic of that page is. It needs to contain the words that you're hoping that people are searching for at the very least. But that doesn't mean that you should be filling out the page with that in mind. It should still be about the visitor at the end of the day.
And I'm guessing with all three factors there that you've just mentioned, it's all about relevance and authority.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, yes, inbound links can come from anywhere, but it's got to be, it's got to come from an authoritative and relevant site.
In most cases, yeah, but Google still hasn't worked out all the kinks.
Or even with the directories, the big directories that people on forums.
That's slightly outdated in terms of a black hat method, if you like, or a non-sustainable white hat method. But yeah, I mean, there's still massive kind of botnets and all that kind of stuff where people are manipulating links and link profiles and that kind of stuff, which do still work, but they're getting penalised more and more all the time. So the use of those is fading in line with kind of how Google penalises you for using that, and so some people have fallen victim of that shouldn't have, and ended up getting penalised. And the big thing that you had with Panda was just that when that algorithm came out, there was a massive amount of people that were actually affected by that, and it was people who had maybe gone with the wrong SEO company that had built these links in less than ethical ways and had no idea that had been done, and then they woke up one morning and found that their results had dropped off the first page and the traffic had plummeted. So yeah, it's always best to steer clear of that because it's just not sustainable. That would be the biggest issue.
Interesting you mentioned black hat methods there, Adam. I mean, is there anything that, there's a lot of what are considered black hat methods out there, and I'm just wondering if there's a few that you could mention that people really ought to be steering clear of, like hidden text and things like that.
I mean, yeah, hidden text, I don't know that anyone really does that anymore. I'd be surprised if they did. But again, I probably wouldn't see it if they had done it. So I guess the big one would be buying links still. You still see companies offering to send traffic and send links to your website, point links to your website. That's never good, and Google's pretty up on that. It knows if you've bought links for the most part. I'd say things like, submitting to article-based PRs, e-zines, all that kind of stuff, they're not as effective as they used to be. I think Google, in the past, probably couldn't differentiate between a spun PR article and a genuine kind of forum post, if you like. But they've really nailed that down now, and it was confirmed, I think, by Matt Cutts recently that PR links are just not going to be as effective anymore.
Matt Cutts, the
search director of Google,
right.
I think, unless he quit. He might have quit really recently, actually, but I might be imagining.
Well, we can confirm that. And we'll put that in the show.
I'm sure he's still there. And so, yeah, it's just anything that might strike you as a bit too good to be true tends to be black hat, just because there's very little kind of room to manoeuvre nowadays. You have to adhere to Google's guidelines for the most part, otherwise you are at risk of kind of getting your site penalised and that kind of stuff.
How much time, this is kind of I guess it's a moving target and not one you can necessarily pin down very easily, but how much time each month should the average membership or not-for-profit be spending on their SEO, managing their SEO?
Well, I guess
it's a bit of a how long is a piece of string type thing?
Slightly, yeah. The fact is that they will be performing SEO whether they know it or not as a membership organisation, because for the most part they will be the authority in their particular industry. So they will be producing content that's supposed to sort of feed down to the industry, inform people, and people will then generally sort of link back to that if there's any guidelines or anything like that they're producing. So there's a fair bit of time that they already do spend doing that But when it comes to the technical side and actually analysing and figuring out what it is they're achieving, I'd say that there's as much time as you can spend understanding these things, the better.
And I guess there's agencies out there not wishing to wave just the net extra flag that can certainly help you with that.
Yeah. There's plenty of agencies out. I mean, it's such an emerging field that there's tons of people out there offering kind of SEO and digital marketing and this kind of stuff. But at the same time, there is a reason why the industry does have a little bit of a bad name, for the most part. And it is because there was a quick buck to be made back in the day. And that was at the expense of people who didn't necessarily know what was going on and why.
Right.
So there was a lot of people that kind of got burnt by that. And there's still people you hear nowadays, coming in and talking about how they've had, been paying for SEO services for the last year.
We hear it ourselves, don't we, Adam?
And there's no evidence of that at all, that they've actually achieved anything for these people. So it just shouldn't happen, because there should be something in place where you're, going over your goals monthly. The things that should have been being tracked that would indicate success just aren't being tracked.
Right. So,
it's a bit of a problem. But like I say, as much time as you can spend on this, the better. And especially in the research stage and the analysing of data, kind of one accurate measurement is just, it's really important. And that you make sure you're putting the time into actually researching this stuff and getting definite answers.
Okay, we've talked a lot about keywords. We've talked a lot about key phrases today. Is there anything out there, any tools out there that you could recommend that people that wanting to start implementing things like keywords into their page titles, into their text and what have you, is there any tools out there that you would recommend for people to use, start thinking about, and that would help them identify new phrases, new keywords that they maybe not necessarily have thought of before?
I'd say your first port of call should always be your Google Analytics, or whatever analytics package you're using. But generally in there, what you'll see is the search terms that people have found your site for. I think what's fairly normal to do is then exclude anything that's your branded term. So, for instance, for us, it would be net extra, because the biggest benefit that you get from search engine optimization and actually being found on search engines is that you can engage with people, you can get in front of people that wouldn't necessarily know that you exist. So a really good indicator of that is that someone's found you for a term that doesn't contain your brand name or anything like that. And so what you can start doing then is kind of analysing how valuable the visitors are on average that come through on that search term, and then start creating content kind of based around that. It's a little bit of an old school practice to look at keywords specifically on a kind of top level like that and then just target content to that keyword. I think the better way of understanding the different segments and the different reasons that people come into your site emerges when you start mapping those keywords to the kind of need state of that visitor. So if the visitor has searched a question, for instance, like, why is net extra so great? If we had a page that dealt with that, if we had a page dedicated to explaining why net extra is so great, chances are that would achieve the goal that we wanted, or the result that we wanted, in that we've answered that question. That was the need state that visitor had. They wanted a question answered. Whereas if someone sort of was a bit further down the conversion funnel, if you like, if they were more interested in actually partnering with us or having us do any kind of development work for them, they would probably not be searching for that term. They would search for something like membership or organisation web development, something like that. And so it's more than just looking at what terms you should target. It's looking at what those searches kind of indicate as being the kind of the need of that person searching for it. Having said that, though, I mean, things like Google Insights, Google Webmaster Tools, it's Google Trends as it's called now, not Insights, sorry, and the keyword research tool for Google AdWords, SEM Rush, all these different things can give you kind of good keyword research to be getting on with. But having said that, I mean, there was a really good blog post about a week ago now talking about the different inaccuracies that there are between kind of webmaster tools and the keyword tool in Google AdWords. So as far as I'm aware, literally the most accurate measurement of kind of keyword search volume on a search engine is actually found in Bing Webmaster Tools. So, for instance, something like Google, they kind of round down and round up, and there's massive inaccuracies. Kind of that the industry's starting to realise now that everything that Google gives you that's not your Google Analytics, it tends to be kind of rounded up and rounded down, and that there's no real correlation that can kind of assure you that that data is accurate. Whereas I saw a Whiteboard Friday with Dwayne Forrester, I think, who's the head of search for Bing, and he took the audience through the different features of Bing Webmaster Tools, and as far as I'm aware, he said that the keyword kind of data that you pull out of Bing Webmaster Tools is accurate down to the actual the search, the single search. So I mean, if Bing Webmaster Tools is saying there was 41 searches for that particular search term, there was probably 41 searches for it. Whereas kind of Google, it just says kind of less than 10, and then the next thing you know, there's 3,600 searches for it. So I mean, those are the kind of levels that Google's working with there. So yeah.
Okay. You mentioned a few blog posts in there. Just for those listening, what we'll probably do is we'll try and include the links to these blog posts on the show notes on our website, which is on www.netextra.net. Mm-hmm. All you'd need to go to is the Insights pages. You'll find the podcast pages from there, and please, you can be able to access the blogs from there. You mentioned just then, actually, it's a good point. I was going to raise it earlier. What is considered good SEO for Google? Is it necessarily considered good SEO for Bing and Yahoo, the likes of them as well?
I think it tends to be. I mean, there's a really kind of relative to all the stuff that's been kind of researched and collated about Google's search ranking algorithms. There's comparatively little about Bing, and it was still kind of the understanding of Bing search rankings were kind of still clouded with myths even, a year or two ago. And you would see these sort of strange things like, Bing likes seeing longer pages with kind of parallax scrolling and that kind of stuff, which may be true, but I can't understand why they would kind of necessarily equate a long page to a good search result. But I think it's a fairly safe bet that if you optimize for Google, if you're optimizing for your visitors, then Bing and Yahoo will pick up on that too and should rank you accordingly. I think the only difference is that Bing it relocates kind of searches based on the click-through rate from the search results pages. So what you'll see is within Google, when you're searching on Google, if a search result gets a lot of clicks, then it may move up, whereas in Bing, if it gets a lot of clicks for a particular search result, if it was sort of position 6 and it was getting more clicks than position 5, 4 and 3, Bing would be a lot quicker to move that up the rankings.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's not something you have a massive amount of control over, though, at the end of the day. Sure. So it's a bit down to luck, and it's a bit down to kind of making sure that, again, you're linking those key searches to the actual need state of the person searching for it. So if the 5 results above you aren't answering the question directly and aren't explicitly stating that it's answering the question directly in the kind of meta description, then you are going to have a fairly good chance of moving up those rankings if you're doing that. So,
okay, good advice. Excellent. We talked about tools just now. Is there any other tools that you could recommend from an SEO perspective? Not necessarily just keywords, but any other generic tools that would help people with their SEO, maybe identify where they're featuring in PageRank and all of that sort of thing, all the important stuff.
I guess the really, really big tools are things like Raven Suite, the Moz package, and something like Majestic SEO. I mean, WordStream's huge for PPC, I think they've won a lot of awards for the services that they offer for PPC.
And Moz is what was SEO Moz?
Was SEO
right?
Moz, yeah, and it's just full of just insanely useful information. And
I guess with things like that, it comes a point where information becomes data, and it takes the likes of, well, like yourself, for example, to sort of start pinpointing what's important and what isn't necessarily important as regards to goals and objectives for that organisation.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there's tools that help you with that, like the new. I think we've got access now to the new Moz Analytics beta that's running. And that does seem like it gives you a lot more useful information straight out of the box, as it were, than the previous version did. But just on the topic of kind of what tools are useful, there's a couple of amazing resources for that. So I mean, you'd be better off kind of googling Annie Cushing's must-have SEO tools. There's about 101 arranged in a spreadsheet, all categorized. And again, on Moz.com. There's 100 free SEO tools that you can kind of filter out based on purpose. So it would be keyword research or content creation, infographics, all these kind of things. So there is a wealth of tools out there, and people are starting to categorize those accordingly. So yeah, it's fairly easy to find what you're looking for as long as you know where to look for it, I guess.
Okay, we know Google in the past have talked a lot about pandas and penguins,
Right.
which I think, for those who aren't familiar with that, am I right in saying they're the updates and algorithms that Google uses?
Yeah.
Is it something that, as a user, as a membership organisation, as a charity, as a Royal College, whatever it might be, is it something that we should be necessarily worried about?
I wouldn't say anyone needs to be worried about it, unless they've done things in the past that, again, we kind of termed it earlier as being quite unsustainable. I mean, there's Google updates every day, and there's a few places where you can actually go to find out what these updates are to the algorithm. Again, somewhere like Moz.com has a weather checker where it kind of gives you a temperature based on the amount of fluctuation they see on the top results and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But when there's a kind of panda or a penguin or anything that's named, it seems after an animal, it seems like that's quite a big shift in the algorithm. So, for instance, these sort of daily ones, they might affect 0.02% of websites and that kind of stuff. But something like Panda affected about 3 or 4% of websites, which is huge.
As a membership or a charity, what are the sort of things that I should be thinking about when it comes to SEO?
Well, I guess always producing informative content. That's really key, especially for membership organisations, and that is, I mean, that's kind of their reason for existing in the first place for the most part. So again, that's always important. I think in terms of not necessarily just the SEO, but the messaging that's on the sites, even though you might be a membership organisation or a union or a charity, you're still kind of selling an idea, so you still need to be aware that you have to address the audience, and you're trying to get the audience or the visitor to actually perform an action that helps you in some way.
And every organisation is different. Every organisation, be it, you could put a group of unions together, you could put a group of charities together. Each individual one will have different goals and objectives, which need to be tailored accordingly.
Yeah, I think for something like memberships as well, there's so much kind of top-down communication from the organisation to its members that I think it starts to get a little stale after a while, and I think that people probably are looking for kind of other views of people working in the industry, which is why kind of forums are so popular, like industry forums and that kind of stuff. I think people kind of retreat onto there where they can have their discussion with their peers rather than just a one-way kind of communication with the membership organisation itself. So if you can think about how you can kind of start getting a bit more user-generated content, that's always going to be a win for any organisation, because I think that, more often than not, that's going to be something that engages the visitors of the website and would probably help increase the amount of people that return to the website as well. So I'd say, something like that would be really key. In terms of charities, I think kind of bringing in donations, obviously, and showing the work you do off to the new visitors to the site and that kind of stuff, just kind of validating your existence as well. That's really important. You have various options as a membership organisation to kind of find out what it is people are wanting. So things like pop-up questionnaires, anything like that can get you a kind of qualitative and quantitative understanding of what it is people are looking for, then that's always going to be an easy one as well, because you can then just start doing what your members want you to do and benefiting from it, really.
Okay, Adam, thanks ever so much for your time today.
Cheers.
We'll be back again with the next podcast. I'm guessing we'll probably look at analytics is another big one, a big topic that I know a lot of you guys out there are really interested in. So we'll be posting a podcast about that soon. In the meantime, thanks for listening. I appreciate your time. Show notes for everything that we've talked about, and certainly including links to blogs and what have you, will be included on our website, on our Insights podcast page, www.netextra.net/insights, and go to the podcast page as I discussed. If you've got any questions, please do email us on info@netextra.net. I better spell that. That's netextra.net. Or by all means, please do give us a call on 01787 319 393. Thanks again, Adam. And until next time, thank you everyone, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks again for taking the time to download this podcast, brought to you by the nice folk at NetExtra, the membership and not-for-profit sector's leading digital marketing experts. To find out more of our other podcasts, simply search for us in iTunes or visit our Insights pages at www.netextra.net/insights. Membership or not-for-profit organisation and want to find out more about our digital and online marketing products and services, please do call us on 01787 319 393. And for those of you outside the UK, simply dial 441787 319 393. You can also browse our website at www.netextra.net, where you'll find loads of information about what we do and, more importantly, who we do it for.